Hello students, today we can discuss about DNA, its structure and levels of organization of DNA. So we can see some of the questions. So first question, which type of DNA is found in conditions with low humidity and high salt concentration? Options are A DNA, B DNA, E DNA, Z DNA. So how many types of DNA are there? There are 6 types of DNA. Okay, and of which A DNA, answer is A. A DNA is found in conditions with low humidity and high salt concentration. We can see the explanation. So there are 6 types of DNA, which is A, B, C, D, E and Z, of which Z DNA is left-handed. All other DNAs are right-handed. And the physiologically most common DNA is B DNA. Okay. And A DNA is seen in conditions with low humidity and high salt concentration, and that was a question. And B DNA, that is a physiologically most common type of DNA seen in conditions where there is high humidity and low salt concentration. Z DNA is left-handed double helix in the 5' end of chromosome, and it has a phosphodiester backbone in a zigzag form. Okay, so these are the main points that we should remember. There's a table showing the different types of DNA, B, A and Z. So here the important points which you should remember is the type of helix. It is left-handed in ZDNA. Okay. And the number of base pairs per turn. It is 10 in BDNA, 11 in ADNA and ZDNA has 12 base pairs per turn. So these are the common questions usually asked. Type ZDNA is left-handed. Number of base pairs per complete turn is 12 and the distance per complete turn. In BDNA it is 3.4, ADNA it is 3.2 and ZDNA it has 4.5. Okay. So the diagram showing different forms of DNA, A, B and Z form. So we can see ZDNA is left-handed, others are right-handed and the physiologically most common form is B form. Okay, seen in conditions where there is low salt and high humidity, and ADNA just opposite. How? High salt and low humidity. Moving on to the second question, it's a simple calculation type question. In a sample of DNA, if adenine is 23%, what will be the amount of guanine present? So here we have to apply the Chargaff's rule. What is Chargaff's rule? Its number of purines is equal to number of pyrimidines. Also, concentration of adenine is equal to concentration of thymine. Okay, applying these rules we can easily calculate. So in Chargaff's rule states that in cellular DNA, regardless of species, purines is equal to pyrimidines. And number of adenine is equal to number of thymine. So adenine plus thymine is equal to 46% and guanine plus cytosine, that is 100 minus 46, 54%. And also number of guanine is equal to number of cytosine. So amount of guanine becomes 54 by 2, 27%. So that is the answer. Okay, so the question was adenine concentration was given, which was 23, and the guanine percentage we have to calculate, and we calculated to be 27. Okay, this is a question that was asked in AIIMS. So you just have to apply the Chargaff's rule. Next question, all the following statements are correct except. Options are nucleotide of one strand binds with a nucleotide of opposite strand by means of hydrogen bond. Second option, each nucleotide pair includes one purine and one pyrimidine. Third option, information from DNA is copied in the form of mRNA. Fourth option, cytosine and uracil differ by one ribose sugar. Now examining these statements, we have to find out the false statement. So let's see the first statement. The nucleotide of one strand binds with the nucleotide of opposite strand by means of hydrogen bond. Yes, that is true. It's by means of hydrogen bond the two nucleotides are connected. Second, each nucleotide pair includes one purine and one pyrimidine. Yes, that is also true. Adenine pairs with thymine, cytosine pairs with guanine. Okay. The information from DNA is copied in the form of mRNA. Yes, DNA, RNA, protein. That is a central dogma. That's also true. So definitely the answer will be D. That is cytosine and uracil differ by one ribose sugar. So what will be the correct statement? Cytosine and uracil differ by only one amino group. It's not by one ribose sugar. That's what. So cytosine and uracil differ by one amino group. Okay, so cytosine on deamination on removal of amino group forms a uracil. Okay, so that is a correct answer here. Moving on to the third question. Identify the marked bond. So these bonds shown in the arrows. What are these bonds? Here, what is the linkage? The N of pyrimidine. The N group of pyrimidine is attached to the ribose sugar by means of which bond? So that is the question. And what is the ribose sugar is attached to the pyrimidine by? Answer is beta N glycosidic bond. Okay, so that is what. So purines, the ribose sugar is attached to the purine by means of beta N glycosidic bond. So that's what beta N glycosidic bond. That is the question answer here. And what about the bonds here? These bonds, that is that which pairs thymine and adenine. That these are hydrogen bonds. Between adenine and thymine there are 2 hydrogen bonds, and between cytosine and guanine there are 3 hydrogen bonds. So these are usually asked in exams. So sugar is connected with the help of glycosidic bond, whereas 2 pair thymine and adenine and cytosine and guanine are connected by means of hydrogen bonds. Moving on to next question. Triplex DNA is due to. So all this triplex DNA belong to the non-canonical DNA structure. Okay, what do you mean by non-canonical DNA structure? It means they do not follow the Watson and Crick rule pair. Watson and Crick base pair rule. What's the rule? That is adenine always pairs with thymine, guanine always pairs with cytosine. That is the Watson and Crick's base pair ruling. But this rule is not followed by the non-canonical DNA structure. So we will see the explanation. So non-canonical DNA structures, they do not rely on adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine binding as defined by Watson-Crick rules of hybridization. Okay, and these are the result of secondary structures. These non-canonical DNA structures are result of secondary structures, and examples are G-coated DNA, triplex DNA, hairpins, cruciform, I-motif structures. These are some examples for non-canonical DNA structures. So it's a diagram. So triplex DNA, G-quadruplex DNA, three-way junction. Okay. So these bonds represent the Watson-Crick bonds, and these dotted bonds are the Hooke-Steen pairs. Okay. So that's a question here. So triplex DNA is formed due to Hooke-Steen pairs. There are many Hooke-Steen pairs in triplex DNA. So triple-stranded DNA is generated by the hydrogen bonding of a third strand into a major groove of bDNA, and commonly seen in polynucleotides, okay, poly A and poly T. The third strand forms hydrogen bonds with another surface of the double helix through Hooke-Steen pairs. So triple-stranded DNA caused by Hooke-Steen pairs, okay. And G-coated DNA, that's another type of non-canonical DNA structure. It's found in telomeres, and there are parallel 4-stranded DNA which has high guanine content. Here also Hooke-Steen pairs are seen. So G-coated DNA and triplex DNA, both these are important. About triplex DNA, there is Hooke-Steen pairs, and G-coated DNA there is high guanine content and found in telomeres and parallel 4-stranded DNA. Moving on to next question. All are features of DNA denaturation except. Options are breaking of hydrogen bonds, primary structure is not altered, viscosity increases, hyperchromicity at 260 nanometer. So we can analyze each option. In DNA denaturation, there is breaking of hydrogen bonds. Is that a true statement? Yes, that's true. Primary structure is not altered. Yes, that is also true. Only the secondary and tertiary structure is destroyed. Primary structure is not altered. Viscosity increases. No, its viscosity decreases in DNA denaturation. So that is the answer. There is hyperchromicity and 260 nanometer. That's also a true statement. So answer is C. Viscosity increases. So diagram showing DNA denaturation. So denaturation meaning the hydrogen bonds are broken. We can denature DNA with the help of heat. or any chemicals. So denaturation, also called as melting of DNA, is a process that separates the two strands into component strands. So it's a process of separation of two strands into its component strands and characterized by breaking of hydrogen bonds. But the phosphodiester bond is not broken and the primary structure is not altered, only the secondary and tertiary structures are broken. And viscosity decreases. So that's a false statement given in the question. In this DNA denaturation, viscosity decreases. Hyperchromicity. What is hyperchromicity? It is the increase in absorbance of UV light showed by the nitrogenous bases at 260 nanometer. So increase in absorbance of UV light showed by the nitrogenous bases at 260 nanometer. That is hyperchromicity. So that is a characteristic of DNA denaturation. Moving on to next question. All are core histones in nucleosome except. So nucleosome, the core histones. Which are the core histones? Okay, we can see the options. H1, H2A, H2B, H3, H4. Of which is not a core histone? That's the question. And the answer is A, H1. We can see the explanation. So that's a diagram of a nucleosome. So histone H1 is seen in the linker DNA. And octamer of core histones is made up of H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. Okay. So H1 is attached to the linker DNA and it's not a part of core DNA. So that was a question. So about nucleosomes. So it's composed of DNA wound around an octameric complex of histone molecules. Okay. And histones, they are the small family of closely related basic proteins composed of arginine and lysine. So histone is a protein found and it's made up of arginine and lysine. Okay. And the core histones are H2A, H2B, H3 and H4. These are the core histones of which H2 and H2B form dimers. H2 and H2B form dimers and H3 and H4 form tetramers. Okay. So these histone oligomers associate from the histone octamer. Okay. H3, H4 form histone octamer and H2 and H2B form dimer. Okay. And what? The core histones are subjected to post-translational modifications and H1 histone is seen in the linker region. It is bound loosely to the nucleosome. And the core histones. So H1 histone is seen in the linker region and the core histones, that is H2A, H2B, H3 and H4, they are subjected to post-translational modifications. So which are the post-translational modifications? Like acetylation, methylation, phosphorylation, then ADP ribosylation, monoubiquitination and sumoylation. Okay. So core histones are subjected to the 6 covalent post-translational modifications. So the core histones are H2A, H2B, H3 and H4, out of which H2 and H2B they form dimers and H3 and H4 form tetramers. Okay. And H1 histone is seen in the linker region. All these points are usually asked in the exam. So another question related to histones. What is the role of H1 histone? Now we should know the roles of each histones. Stabilizes 30 nanometer chromatin fiber, firmly binds 2 additional half turns of DNA, stabilizes the primary particle, central role in the formation of nucleosome. So what is the answer? Answer is A. It stabilizes the 30 nanometer chromatin fiber. We can see the explanation. So histones, H1 histone, its function is stabilize the 30 nanometer chromatin fiber. That was a question asked. H2 histone. So H2 and H2B, we know that it form dimer and it's a part of the core histone. They stabilize the primary particle and firmly bind 2 additional half turns of DNA. Okay. Then H3 and H4, they form tetramer and has a central role in the formation of nucleosome. So you should know the function of each histone. H1 histone stabilize the 30 nanometer chromatin fiber. H2 histone, H2A and H2B, and their dimers stabilize the primary particle and firmly bind 2 additional half turns of DNA. Whereas H2 and H4, they form tetramer, has a central role in the formation of the nucleosome. Okay. So the roles of modified histones given in Harper. So this table is important. So these are the roles of modified histones. Acetylation of histones H3 and H4, that is associated with the activation or inactivation of gene transcription. Okay, H3 and H4, that is associated with the activation or inactivation of gene transcription. Then acetylation of core histones is associated with chromosomal assembly during DNA replication. Phosphorylation of histone H1 is associated with a condensation of chromosomes during the replication cycle. ADP ribosylation of histones is associated with a DNA repair. Methylation of histones is correlated with activation and repression of gene transcription. Monoubiquitination is associated with the gene activation, repression and heterochromatic gene silencing. Sumoylation of histones. So sumo meaning the small ubiquitin related modifier is associated with transcription repression. Okay, so any of these points can be asked as an MCQ. So you should know this, all the points. So acetylation of histones H3 and H4 is associated with the activation or inactivation of gene transcription. Acetylation of core histones is associated with a chromosomal assembly during DNA replication. Phosphorylation of histone H1 is associated with a condensation of chromosomes during the replication cycle. ADP ribosylation of histones is associated with a DNA repair. Methylation of histones is correlated with activation and repression of gene transcription. Monoubiquitination is associated with the gene activation, repression and heterochromatic gene silencing. Sumoylation of histones is associated with the transcription repression. Okay, so these are the roles of modified histones. So moving on to the next question. Euchromatin is the region of DNA that is relatively, options are uncondensed, condensed, overcondensed, partially condensed. So euchromatin is the region of DNA that is relatively uncondensed. So answer is A. We can see the explanation. So that is euchromatin. It is less condensed, whereas heterochromatic is highly condensed. Okay, heterochromatin is highly condensed and euchromatin is a less condensed part. So table differentiating euchromatin and heterochromatin. So euchromatin is a transcriptionally active chromatin, less densely packed, and the chromatin stains less densely because it is less densely packed and stains less densely. Generally replicated earlier than heterochromatin, and histone acetylation increases the euchromatin. Methylation hinders formation of euchromatin due to changes occurring at cytosine residues at CpG islands in DNA. Okay, that was an MCQ asked in AIIMS. Methylation hinders formation of euchromatin due to changes occurring at cytosine residues at CpG islands in DNA of euchromatin. Okay. About heterochromatin, it is a transcriptionally inactive one, and it is densely packed and the chromatin stains densely. Okay, chromatin stains densely in heterochromatin. And the chromatin in the region is high in MEC content. What is MEC? The methylation of deoxycytidine residues, which decrease the gene transcription. So heterochromatin is transcriptionally inactive and densely packed, and histone deacetylation increases heterochromatin. Okay, so histone acetylation increases euchromatin, which is transcriptionally active. Okay, so this table is important for your exam. Okay, all these points are usually asked in various entrance examinations. Study all these points. Moving on to another important question. Beads on a string appearance on electron microscopy is given by. So this is a question regarding the arrangement of nucleosomes. Okay. So options are naked double helical DNA, 10 nanometer chromatin fibril, 13 nanometer chromatin fibril, metaphase chromosome. The answer is B. 10 nanometer chromatin fibril gives the beads on a string appearance. We can see the diagram. The levels of organization in DNA. Okay. So that's a naked double helix DNA and the 10 nanometer chromatin fibril. So there is a beads on a string appearance. Then the 13 nanometer chromatin fibril composed of nucleosomes, and the condensed and non-condensed loops, and finally the metaphase chromosome. So these are the levels of organization in DNA. Okay. So centromere, there is a AT rich region containing repeated DNA sequence. So about DNA organization in tissues, the centromere is the adenine thymine rich region containing repeated DNA sequence, and the telomeres are the ends of the chromosome where there is repeats of 5 prime TTAGGG 3 prime. Okay, telomere has ends of TTAGGG repeat sequences. Okay. Then metaphase has a two-fold symmetry where there is identical duplicated sister chromatids and each sister chromatid contains one double-stranded DNA molecule. Okay. So all these are important points about the DNA organization in tissues. So centromere is the AT-rich region and telomeres at repeat sequence of TTA-GGG sequence. A metaphase has a two-fold symmetry identical duplicated sister chromatids where each sister chromatid contains one double-stranded DNA molecule. Okay. So let's question about the mitochondrial DNA. This is another important topic. All are true regarding mitochondrial DNA except makes up approximately 1% of cellular DNA. Yes, that is a true statement. Mitochondrial DNA makes up approximately 1% of total cellular DNA because the human mitochondria contains 2 to 10 copies of a small circular 16 kilobase pair DNA molecules that makes up approximately 1% of total cellular DNA. Okay, so out of 37 genes in human mitochondrial DNA, 22 genes codes for transfer RNA and 2 codes for ribosomal RNA. And 13 genes encode for proteins that play key role in respiratory chain. So, mitochondrial DNA makes up approximately 1% of total cellular DNA with 37 genes. So, that's a true statement. Second one, has maternal non-Mendelian inheritance. Yes, that is a unique feature of mitochondrial DNA. It has a maternal non-Mendelian inheritance. All mitochondria are contributed by the ovum during the zygote formation. So all mitochondria are contributed by the ovum during zygote formation. Thus the mother transmits mitochondrial DNA to all their offspring. So its mother transmits the mitochondrial DNA to all their offspring. Now, third option has a higher mutation rate than nuclear DNA. That's also true. Mitochondrial DNA has about 5 to 10 times more mutation rate than nuclear DNA. Has 16,569 base pair. Yes, that's a true statement. Okay. Mitochondrial DNA has around 16,569 base pairs, which makes up about 1% of total cellular DNA. So, what is the base pairs in nuclear DNA? Nuclear DNA has around 3.3 billion base pairs. That is another question asked. Mitochondrial DNA has 16,569 base pairs, whereas nuclear DNA has 3.3 billion base pairs. 16,569 base pairs in mitochondrial DNA, whereas nuclear DNA has 3.3 billion base pairs of DNA. 3.3 billion. Okay. So nuclear DNA has around 3.3 billion base pairs. So nuclear DNA has around 3.3 billion base pairs. So all the statements are true. So makes up approximately 1% of total cellular DNA, has maternal non-Mendelian inheritance, higher mutation rate than nuclear DNA, 16,059 base pairs. So answer is E. All are true statements. So that's a diagram of the human mitochondrial DNA, which has 16,569 base pairs and 37 genes. Okay. With a unique maternal Mendelian inheritance. Okay. So that's about the DNA organization and structure. So students, make things happen. Okay. All the best for your exams.